that you use a mic so we can capture those comments and share that with the rest of the people that couldn't come today. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeff because he's going to use this microphone. And he's going to talk about the reporting requirements that we have for incidents and the statewide mutual aid, and then how to request resources when your jurisdiction becomes overwhelmed.
Good morning. I like this mic. Makes me feel like a game show host. Jonathan York put this presentation together, but I will try to do it justice. And if you have any questions at any time, just stop me and ask the question. This is a seminar. It's interactive. Can you hear me, Jim? Can you hear me? Testing.
Good.
Sorry. So it is interactive. It is a seminar, so please stop me and ask questions, and we can talk about it then. You don't have to stay until the end. This is what emergency management is. I will not read slides. So emergency management is this. Basically, the planning, decision making, and assignment of resources to mitigate disasters. Sorry. Maybe I just need to.
Maybe you better use the other phone.
Thank you. The system allows for all levels of government to plan and prepare for the risks that we have. Kansas Division of Emergency Management, which is where I work, is the lead agency statutorily charged with coordinating state response and recovery to support local disasters and emergencies, as well as day-to-day operations, planning, etc., exercises, training. We're responsible for development and maintenance of the state response plan. The Kansas response plan is Brian Murdy's, so he's here today, so if you have any questions about that, talk to Brian. Coordination with local, state, and federal levels of government, private industry, and non-governmental organizations to support incident management. We work with the incident management teams, we work with FEMA, we work with local teams as they are, and we coordinate damage assessment, and we are the conduit to request federal assistance. No questions? Can you all hear me? Is it close enough? Thank you. County emergency management was created by statute at the county level of government. It is required. All emergencies and disasters begin and end locally, and local emergency management is responsible for development and maintenance of the county emergency operations plan, coordination with government, private industry, and non-governmental organizations at the local county level, and coordinate response and recovery activities to support incident management at the county level. In Kansas, how many cities have emergency management? What? Somebody said 2? 0. 0 recognized. Cities can have emergency management, but they can't contact the state EOC. You have to go through your county emergency manager to be able to access federal assistance or state assistance. Everybody got that? Anyone awake? Thank you. This is a little graph. The slides will be available afterwards. You don't have to read every word now, you can take it home, but it basically talks about what happens at the local level, at the city, township, fire department, whatever that local level is. Moves on to the county government who assesses the need and activates the county EOC if necessary. Starts resource support and tracking. Coordinates public information at that county, city level, and interfaces with the state emergency management. The state assesses the need for a disaster declaration or a need to activate the state EOC, facilitate logistics and resource requests and mutual aid, coordinates public information, requests federal assistance, and conducts damage assessment after a disaster. And then FEMA, federal government, well, we just really prefer that we don't have them in, but if they do come in, they coordinate federal resources to support us and augment state and local actions through the federal system and the armed forces, and then administer federal disaster funds if needed or if we qualify. Incident notification. Any questions before we go on to incident notification? I'm not good with microphones. County emergency managers establish procedures locally to receive incident notification from all levels of government and non-government organization within the jurisdiction at the local level. What does that look like in your county? Chris, what's it look like in your county? Chaos? Adam? Some people use 911 through dispatch. Some people, fire departments, contact the emergency manager directly. Can be made through a duty officer, some of the larger counties. I know Dan Rosen from Johnson County is here. You guys use a duty officer, right? Yes. Sometimes it's through the 911 dispatch center. They'll contact the emergency manager. Is that how it works for you? And that's flexible, but the county emergency manager needs to design that process. And I know most of the county emergency managers throughout the state, and there are several different processes, but most every county has a process. And to access the state and the resources that we're going to be talking about today, it has to go through that county emergency manager. That's just how it works. This is why it's important to report into your county emergency manager. I pretty much just said that because I got ahead of myself. Lol. Emergency management facilitates multi-agency coordination to support the incident. They can activate the County Emergency Operations Center and interface with county commissioners as necessary, and get a local disaster declaration, because without that local disaster declaration, you can't access that next level of assistance. And it allows the incident commander, the fire chief, or whoever's commanding that incident, to focus on the incident and leave the minutia of getting resources and tracking things and taking care of all that paperwork to the emergency manager and the EOC. Seems like a good idea? Just where you nod to let me know you're away. It's a trick question. This is the information that needs to be reported to the county emergency manager with a wildfire, so that the county emergency manager can call us and we can do what we need to do to assess that next level of response or of assistance. The location, when did it start, date and time, the size of the fire, number of acres burnt so far, estimated level of containment, 5%, 10%, 0%. Are any communities or housing areas threatened? That's really important. If there's a community that's going to be evacuated or that's in danger, your emergency manager needs to know it first, but the state also needs to know it. Are evacuations planned or in effect right now? Are there any critical infrastructure, water plants, power plants, anything of that nature that's threatened? Resources committed to firefighting and suppression efforts, and additional resources that are going to be needed over the next 12 to 24 hours that you aren't going to be able to fill at that local level, or at your level when you're county EM.
Jeff, can you back up to that slide for just a second? I don't want to, if this is coming up later, just tell me and we'll save it for them. So we talked about estimated level of containment. Is there going to be a discussion with that particular question relative to FMAGs?
I don't know that we have anything relative to FMAGs as far as containment. For the containment, I think that all we ever want, we're not going to lie to get an FMAG. No. So if the containment is 50%, that's what we have to go with. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have a possibility of getting an FMAG, because 50% contained affecting a 10,000 person suburb is still possibly going to qualify for an FMAG, just as well as something that's 0% contained if everything else is met. But the FMAGs are a tricky thing, and I think the important thing we learned over the last few years is that we always need to be truthful with what our containment is, what our assets are on the ground, because it's impossible to get a good picture. I'm going to defer this to my boss.
I'm just gonna
She stood up and raised her hand, and I work for her. Here, you can use this one, Angie.
I just want to make the comment that I make to FEMA. Whether we get an FMAG when we make that phone call to FEMA or not does not change the way that we respond to the fire. It means that somewhere down the line we hope to get some type of federal reimbursement back to that jurisdiction, but we're still going to throw all the resources that we have on that fire to put it out, to contain it, and worry about the money later. So whether you call and ask for an FMAG and we get it or we don't get it is not going to change the response at the local level at the mutual aid level, at the state level, or F, we need to ask for any type of resources, get the fire out, and we'll worry about the money later.
Well, then, just to follow up on my original question, I don't want to sound like I'm encouraging lying or fibbing or anything like that either. But my understanding over the past couple of years is different than what Jeff just stated, that anything above 0 will still potentially qualify for an FMAG. I thought I had heard all along that it had to be 0.
We still have to be truthful.
I agree.
And we have never tried to get it. We shouldn't be, if it's endangering a community 10 miles away, but it's going fast enough and you're 0% contained, that's when you should call it in. But if something changes and you have a fire that's 50% contained, but the 50% that's not contained is burning near us, it still needs to be called in. But if you've called it in, if your fire departments have called it in up front to the county emergency manager, and the county emergency manager is coordinating with KDM, we should never get to a point where we're more than a couple percent contained where we would even think about an FMAG. But like, as Angie said, the FMAG can't be the focus. And last year, over the last couple of years, there have been a couple fires that were reported in as 0% contained, but then it came out through the media that they weren't 0% contained. So we need to, and so if we had called in an FMAG, and FEMA was monitoring local media as they do, and the local media is reporting 50% contained, but we were saying 0% contained, the credibility of the entire system would cascade, and we would have negative effects. I believe, Cody, that we can get an FMAG and not be 0% contained. That's my personal belief.
Well, that was whether I worded it poorly or not, that was really what I was getting at.
I believe so. We've never tried because we've never had a fire that was meeting all the other requirements that was more than 0% contained. But if you read the FMAG very carefully, it doesn't say it has to be 0% contained.
Jeff, will you go over the requirements of an FMAG?
Is somebody else going over the requirements for an FMAG later, or do we want to touch on them briefly?
We can touch on it briefly.
Hey Jeff, is it not in this slide deck?
Yeah.
I thought it was.
It may be in the slide deck. Let's wait till the end and see if it's in here. I think
I'm looking ahead right now, see if it's in there.
let's just see. This is fun for all of us.
It's not in there.
For those of you who didn't hear, Angie said somebody missed the preparedness part of emergency management. She's talking about me. Yes, Dan?
I have a question about the reporting in general. I assume that if there are wildfires that are being able to be addressed by local resources, that's not something that needs to be reported to the state. It's only...
We would prefer you report anything that may tax your local If you are containing it now within your jurisdiction, but if any one thing changes, if you lose a truck for a smaller jurisdiction, if it runs for another 5 hours and you have to rehab firefighters, or if you could have another structure fire for Johnson County, call it in. It doesn't hurt to let us know what's going on, and it doesn't hurt for the fire departments in other parts of the jurisdiction to let the county EM know what's going on. That way we have a bigger, better sight picture overall as a state. And I would encourage the emergency managers in the room, when we have a high fire danger day, we put an incident in WebEOC for that fire. If you've got fires, put them in WebEOC so that the whole state can see, well, man, there's a lot of little fires out west. There's nothing big, but there's a lot of little fires. Did I say widow fires? A lot of widow fires are impacting response because all the departments are contained right now. They're able to fight those fires on their own. But if something big kicks off, there's no one left to fight it. So all the other emergency managers and fire departments in the state can then know that there's a possibility of something happening. So put it in WebEOC. Hi, Amy, I didn't see you there. This is the information that needs to be provided for a resource request. What capability? What capability you need, not what piece of equipment you need or what resource you specifically want. Just tell us what you want done. The size, the physical size and description of the capability. If you need a generator, tell us what it needs to power. If you need a truck, tell us what it needs to be able to do. Don't say I want the giant new truck from X. Say, we need this capability. The amount needed, how many you need of each asset, where do you need that resource to be delivered? What's the staging area or the location that you want that resource so it can be checked in? If you can NIMS type it, that's best. When does it need to be there and how long does it need to stay? Who should we talk to if there's questions? If that resource is coordinated, who do you need that resource owner to call to coordinate any information that's not known? And what actions have been taken to exhaust local mutual aid and contracts? State assistance is requested. If anybody's ever seen me give a presentation about anything, I hammer the 785-291-3333. That is the number that everybody in emergency management needs to go to sleep thinking about. If I can make everybody go to sleep thinking 785-291-3333. So when that call comes in the middle of the night, you know that call should be answered 24 hours a day by the staff duty officer from KDM. If we are activated overnight in the EOC, it is transferred into the EOC, but it should be answered. Unfortunately, as you see, how many numbers are up there? One? Who said that? Good job, you're awake. And in the back, so extra credit for that. There is only one staff duty officer and there is only one phone number. So if it goes to voicemail, leave a message. It doesn't mean you're being ignored. It doesn't mean that nobody's there. It just simply might mean that they're on another call or they could be having some personal time. But leave a message because otherwise, we've had it happen where people called and said, well, I called, didn't get an answer. Well, did you leave a message? No. Well, please do. If you leave a message, I guarantee you're going to get a call back as soon as they're done with personal. State assistance is available when the county emergency manager has determined that the capability does not exist within the affected county or region. The county has exhausted all mutual aid agreements and all resources within the jurisdiction, all mutual aid, all contractor support, and there has to be a verbal or written declaration. Does anybody know what I would say about declarations? Jerry? Declare early, declare often. It doesn't ever hurt to declare a disaster. If you need a disaster declared, it's okay to declare a disaster. There's no penalty, there's no financial negative, there's no political negative. In fact, as a former county emergency manager, sometimes declaring a disaster, declaring an emergency for a small group of people that are affected can make them know that the county leadership, the county commissioners, care about them. So there is no negative, except you have to pay me $1 every time you do it. That's not a negative for me. That was a lie. Mutual aid can be sought through the Kansas Mutual Aid Compact. There is a long presentation. What, Brian, about 75 slides on the KMAS?
Yeah.
I've done it in Johnson County before. So if you want that 75-slide Kansas Mutual Aid Assistance Compact presentation, please give us a call and we'll come out and give it. But really what you need to know is right here. It allows for the sharing of personnel and equipment amongst jurisdictions after a local state of disaster emergency is declared. That means if Reno County needs something and Lyon County has it, but there is no mutual aid agreement, once Reno County declares, Reno County Emergency Management can call Lyon County Emergency Management and say, hey, can we have this resource? And it's covered under the Kansas Mutual Aid Assistance. It doesn't have to have a specific memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding. But the key to that is there has to be a local disaster or emergency declared. It addresses workers' compensation, license, I can't ever say this word, reciprocity. This word is my kryptonite. Tort liability and reimbursement. And the resources may be requested through your county emergency manager. Additional information is available at the website and makes good light reading before bedtime. Typical assistance the state resources requests that the state receives. We can facilitate mutual aid, and I think Brian's going to talk more about that in the CRMCS part. Brian's going to talk more about that in the CRMCS part. Aerial fire reconnaissance or surveillance, aerial fire with suppression support, the incident management team, EOC support teams, GIS mapping support, shelter support, technical assistance for residents and pets, generators for critical infrastructure, and a volunteer reception center assistance. And anything else that you can think of, you can ask for. We can tell you where to get it, or hopefully find it. Any questions? No more questions? Well, we're going to talk about the FMAG a little bit. The FMAG, the only person who can technically request an FMAG is the governor's authorized representative, who, for most purposes, is Angie Morgan. A county can't request an FMAG. The county can give the information to the state EOC or the SDO and say, we think this should be an FMAG, but a county does not request an FMAG. A county reports an incident, and the governor's authorized representative requests an FMAG if necessary. The kicker for that, and the numbers have just changed, so I don't know them. Chris, do you know the numbers this year? The numbers, there's two numbers. There's a 4 fire number, which is right around $210,000 to $220,000. If your fire exceeds that, you could get an FMAG reimbursement. Every fire that's called in for an FMAG doesn't make that threshold. So if your fire is only $150,000 and it's the first fire of the year, you're probably not going to get any reimbursement. However, there's a cumulative total of about 630, I think it's 610 actually is what it's, 609, 610, for fires throughout the state for fire for a year. So if you have a $105,000 fire and you have everybody gets a $105,000 fire, you add up 6 of them, you hit that state threshold, every fire after that. Amy, how much was your fire in Wabunsee County? Amy had a $140,000 fire, which happened within hours of the Anderson Creek fire. So she qualified for an FMAG reimbursement because the Anderson Creek hit the threshold for the state. The important thing to remember, though, is it can't be requested by the governor's authorized representative if it's not called in a timely manner. We can't go back. If a fire burns an entire community and it wasn't called in to the state prior to the fire burning that community, it doesn't count. You can't go back. It's not like flooding. When we have flooding, you go back afterwards and you go, yeah, we had this damage and now we're going to declare. It has to be done while the fire is actively burning and while things are in danger. And I think that's just probably the key to FMAG, but I see Angie over here, and this usually means she's going to tell me I'm doing something wrong.
No, we're just trying to figure out if you're Seinfeld or if you're, which comedian you're on. Can you go back to the slide that shows what to report to the state EOC? So most of these questions are listed on the form that we have to fill out with FEMA. In addition, we have to verify weather conditions, current weather conditions, weather conditions that are occurring in the next 12 to 24 hours. And I think there's an index that we get, but all the information that we provide to FEMA is then verified through and the Forest Service can correct me, but a principal federal officer, is that the correct term? Principal advisor. And they're with the Forest Service on a national level. So they also reach out, I believe, to you guys. So they verify a lot of these conditions. But I think Jeff really hit it on the nail. Just call and we'll figure out all that later. And we know that conditions change. A lot of our conditions last year where and that's where we saw the wildfires is when the front came in. I think the Weather Service office will give us some of those indicators, but these are just little decision makers. It's not all or none. So the most important thing is to report that fire and make sure that the fire is burning. If it's out, like Jeff said, it's a no-go.
A couple of years ago, right after the Anderson Creek fire, we did send out a checklist with all this information on it through the regional emergency management coordinators. So the regional coordinators should have gotten that to the county. it's been a couple years and it could have been a paper copy, so if you need that, I'll get it back out to the regional coordinators again, and they can get that back out to the counties. So it's good. After a couple years of no fires in your jurisdiction, things are gonna get to the bottom of that pile in your inbox, or your trash can, which is my inbox. So, no, kidding. Are we ready for a break? Any questions before break?
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started now. How's the volume? Can everybody hear me in the back? Hear me all right? All right, good.